Welcome back to the Voices of Impact, the space where we move beyond surface level leadership advice and into the real work of transformation, clarity, courage, and leading with intention in complex systems. Today's episode is for leaders operating in high stakes environments where scale, speed, and pressure are constant, and where leadership isn't theoretical, it's actually lived. So we're talking about what it really takes to lead transformation that lasts, right? Not just delivering outcomes here, by really truly creating impact across people, systems, and culture. So I'm excited to welcome Shaswati, a global transformation leader, brand director, and executive coach with nearly 2 decades of experience delivering large-scale business and tech transformations across the US, UK, Japan, on all of that. It's a lot of global. Shaswati has led complex initiatives for Fortune 500 organizations and sustained 97% customer satisfaction, right? So all while operating from a deeply human-centered leadership philosophy, which is amazing. So congrats on that. So what sets her apart is her win-win-win approach, creating value not just for organizations, but for customers and teams simultaneously. Her leadership is grounded in empathy, transparency, and continuous learning, even in environments where failure isn't an option. So what we both believe is true transformation doesn't come from control or force, right? It really comes from courage and conscious leadership. So this is a conversation about strategy and humanity. It's a combination of both, about scaling impact without really losing yourself. So Shaswati, welcome to Voices of Impact. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Veena. I'm also glad, and thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Of course, so glad to have you here. Let's get started. So yeah, going into your background and your story. So you've created extraordinary impact across 55 countries. That's just very inspiring, honestly. So kudos to you driving transformation on a global scale. So what early experiences or influences sparked your passion for solving these complex business problems?
I would say I was always a bit scientific minded and wanted to solve problems, but it was also the people angle which actually helped me sustain through the initial, I would say, the 5 to 10 years experience range. When generally people are deciding whether they want to go the leadership way or they want to move into technical expertise or business domain, the fact that I could make even those small and those actually compounded over times because the same team worked with me and they wanted to work back, that kind of, along with my first skill, which is wanting to solve problems, catapulted me to continue doing, and only the scale started becoming larger, the complexities increased, and of course the global span and the team size increased. So that is how it took step by step and went forward.
Amazing. I love that. That's amazing. So great. And you've been with TCS for nearly 2 decades, right? Rising from practitioner to global transformation director. So I guess that's a really important question about promotion, right? So what has kept you rooted, inspired, and continually growing and being promoted in one organization for this long? What's that secret sauce?
I think it was like any relationship, Veena. It was, I think, the match of values. So
Right.
TCS in its core, has the values of learning and growing, respect for individuals. To start with, those were great values with which I started. But then when I went through from a leadership perspective, the value of integrity and then the fact that leadership won't always leading change is one of the values. And the leadership, and I'm very grateful to a whole string of leaderships. I would probably not be here without them as much as my team. I would say some awesome, fantastic teams I had the opportunity of leading who actually trusted in me and gave me, those stressed situations where I had to really push myself hard. And, the secret sauce is, I think, is within each one of us. But there is, there's a journey from becoming a caterpillar to a butterfly. That's
Right.
where you have to trust that the caterpillar will have enough secret sauce inside and it will grow its wings and come out. And I think for me, it was the trust of my seniors right from the very first one of my programs in 2004 till date. I have been very honored with some of the great names which I've worked with. Along with my teams, definitely my bosses and my customers, yes.
Amazing. I love that. You think of it as a secret sauce, but it's really about knowing yourself first, right? And having that
Yes.
trust and making sure that you're intentional about where you're putting your energy, what kind of culture you want to go into, what kind of company you want to do, right? And then knowing your leadership style. So that's amazing. So this is something that I've been asked many times, right? A lot of people have asked me in the corporate. So awesome. You've won multiple awards, so congrats of like high performer,
Thank you.
best boss, best debut female. So what do you believe sets your leadership style apart in terms of impact and people development?
I would say I always, the same things which I learned from my leadership. One of the things which I do is when I won the Best Debut Female Award, it is a lot of hard work and having trust in the leadership of listening to them and just walking the path. When it was the next step forward, when I was leading the team, at that time, it was just the same thing that I had to at times give very stretched goals to my team and sometimes be very strict that you have to do this thing. But at the same time, this is what I learned. You give them a stretch goal, but you also give them the nurturing and the support. And this triangle then becomes that beautiful space where they get stretched. So when I was declared as a winner of the Sinosher Award, which is the Best Boss Award, it was a very beautiful surprise. And then, of course, the Hyper Awards were throughout, the three High Performer Awards were throughout the journey of 2008 till 2017, 9 years. And I believe they were through different bosses. I think I continue to, do the same thing, which is to make sure that I trust in my team. Then I also at times had to take, as you grow, what differentiates is the amount of courage and then the way you communicate, because what works at a certain level, doesn't work at the next level or the next level. So that fine tuning again happened because I was very, I would say, learning from my bosses and different kind of bosses for that matter. I also listened very intentionally, like you said, to my customers, because as I grew up in my career, there were multiple global teams I worked with. So I think it was a juxtaposition of all this, along with sometimes the ability to just trust the next step and take that next step while you don't know the steps 2 and 3. Those are what I believe helped me, take things forward. And last but not the least, I think I was always very clear, and I till date always try to be very clear with my communication when, especially working with teams, because I think clarity is just the secret sauce when you're working with a large, and sometimes you have to repeat yourself, but once you do all this together, it is just the right thing. So I was very, I would say, fortunate to be nominated. Every time High Performer Award also meant I was mentored by somebody very senior. So I did make sure to note that down and keep following what mentorship I got on the way.
Right.
Thanks
Amazing.
for asking.
Yeah, no, that's
I'm
amazing.
reminded of those awards. Thank you.
Kudos to you. I mean, yes, we all learn from our mentors. We just kind of pass it down. So the more you invest in mentors, we learn from them, and it's just like you pass it down, right? And I love how you said, like, for your leadership style, it's grounding and it's empathetic, yet you actually push your team a little bit. Because, I mean, there's one thing to have that empathy, but you also, and I think that's also something that I do as a coach, right? Just kind of pushing them a little bit in that direction of like, hey, you can do it. Because I know a lot of people are resistant, but just kind of giving them a push and that motivation while being empathetic is very difficult, right? It's a struggle that a lot of, especially female leaders have. Kudos to you. And going into your purpose, right? So I know you've been deeply involved in zero child labor initiatives. Does purpose integrate into your identity as a leader?
So that purpose of making, I've always had this vision of having a world which is free from child labor, basically a world where children were having the love, the shelter, the nurturing and the education that they deserve when they are still a child. So I think that being my North Star is my clarity, and that clarity has always driven me to continue to pursue that purpose while doing what I'm doing with compassion, with courage, because that is definitely a bold path. Because there are so many children who are still across the world, including India, still stuck in child labor. But I believe as leaders, as coaches, it is and that is one of the C's of leadership, which is coaching the people of the world to see that North Star, to understand that why it is so important of establishing a world order or a next, we are the creators of the world, right? So giving them
Right.
that world, which every child has these basic rights in place, and what it means for the world and the next generation, their next level and next generation is so, so important. So I continue to then practice the communication and the consistencies to just complete the 7 Cs of leadership is my way of making sure I continue to work on that path of creating that world.
Yeah, amazing. I love this. Now, I think this is very important because anyone I talk to, the visionary leaders, I think we're all focused on it's very important with the operational, the systems, but we tend to forget the
Yeah.
why, right? And we need both to be successful,
Yes.
and you're like the model for that, right? You know how to build the teams, drive the outcomes. You've done so much outcomes, you scaled teams 5x, but you also know how to be like, hey, this is a bigger picture, your North Star, and you're following that each and every time. So kudos to you. I think that's where the identity, right? And as I'm an identity-led coach as well, it starts from your why, right? Your North Star. Why are you here? Like you said, that legacy piece. And that's the foundation, and you have a solid foundation, right? And that's the kind of message I want to bring out there to people that, yes, we need to have that practical systems in place and outcomes, but what really makes us sustainable is that internal foundation. So really understanding, getting super clear on your why and your purpose, right? So I love how you combine the two. And that's probably the reason why you won all these awards. It really shows. So amazing. Also amazing. So let's go into more of the strategic leadership. So you've operated across complex environments, so large teams, high expectations. So how do you prioritize what to transform first?
Okay, so before even looking at what is the scope of the program, I first look at if the team needs a transformation, because many times I have taken over teams which were tired, little dragged, because they were part of my team because they had done some similar implementation, but also that had left him very tired and kind of overstretched, worked over, not rested over weekends. So the very first thing I look at is transforming the mindset of people. And I have taken very sometimes difficult decisions, including saying, okay, we will not start the work till the team is rested and they're all together. It may mean starting not at all, or it may mean starting with a smaller team and letting the rest of them actually go and take rest and get rejuvenated. So with the people
Right.
first mindset, right? Then, of course, when we look at implementation, there are plans to be done and strategies to be done. Then from a business aspect, it is always important then to minimize the scope of impact with the maximum flavor. So suppose if I were to implement across 50 countries, I would always look at the flavors which I would want and pick 2 to 3 countries, and we would, in agreement, of course, with customers, first try to transform a smaller piece. And once we are able to do that, and sometimes with some learnings in the initial step, then extrapolate it, look at the whole piece, and then go big bang and roll out. But then it always starts from people, Veena.
Yes. Yes. But just love this answer. No, you're a true leader, honestly. Such a true leader here, because I love how you just started talking about we need to shift the mindset, right? It's the people first mindset. Because when it comes to prioritizing, especially people just go to strategy when you do this and that, time management, everything goes into that logic, like you said, implementation, but they never think about what mindset shift is needed, right? Going back to the clarity piece, going back to the foundation first, then the rest becomes easier, right? So absolutely, so I love how you're prioritizing that first. So super important for the leaders out there. Amazing. Going into a little bit more about, clarity, influence. So going into leadership, executive presence. So you regularly influence decisions at the boardroom level. So what was the biggest learning curve in developing executive presence for you?
I would say the boardroom people are somebody who are both used to saying as well as taking a lot of criticism. So that was, I would say, the first learning. And secondly, it was also about deep listening and sometimes saying, I would say most of the times, saying the right thing, but maybe with growing years, I have learned to package it in a more tactful manner so that not everyone is so open to taking ideas which does not align with them. However,
Right.
I would say putting it intentionally and be willing to pursue it and say it enough number of times with enough empathy to
Yeah.
make them finally understand and see the big picture you're talking about has made all the difference.
Right. Right. Yes, absolutely. I think executive presence is just like we talked about. We need to look at the vision, right? So vision top to bottom, because we're so used to, especially in executive and corporates, it's always like, what
Right.
should we do next? It's like what tasks based and strategy. And I still go have conversations and still goes back to that. But there's that reminder. And I love how you're such a good mentor that you talk about, okay, go back to the mission, go back to the purpose. Right. And then tie the two. So that is a learning curve that every leader is having, and it takes some time, but just knowing how to navigate that is very key to being a successful leader. Right. So absolutely. And going into this a little bit more, like you talked about tailoring it. So how would you tailor your leadership style when working with teams across like globally, right? Different cultures and expectations, because you worked with like Germany and Netherlands. So how would you tailor that?
I would say it's that do learn, adapt, and again do cycle, which happens because there is no one size fits all across cultures. There is massive learning when you start, especially with a new geography. So I would say it is again understanding, we're starting small. Like I said earlier, many times you would have clarity if you're very lucky. If you don't, you have probably a visibility of few steps. So you start with few small decisions and then you see how the teams are taking it. Every team is different, be it UK, US, they have their own styles.
Mhm.
Try to learn, unlearn and quickly learn how they are working and then start increasing your, I would say the volume of steps you take has been my mantra. Because there
Nice.
was always, because the way, US are so blunt, they would take that kind of feedback and give it. The Japan was just the opposite. And what worked in US did not work in Japan. Like when I tried to go very
Yeah.
hard, there was an escalation against me and I was just taken aback. But then I realized that's their way, you have to sensitize yourself and make sure your customers are aligned. But once you learn it, I have seen mostly, maybe I've been very lucky, but I have seen most of my customers take to my style of leadership very well.
I love that. No, that's very important. Like you said, everything is a learning curve, right?
Yeah.
Growing and evolving. It's so important to adjust, like change management, because sometimes, like in the US, I've noticed it's direct, but we're just sticking to one strategy, but you have to adjust and go with the flow at times. We can't just stick to one thing. Having that growth mindset is very important. So absolutely. And it's very important for the different cultures and communication. So very transparent communication and then being super clear expectations up front. So absolutely. So going through your specific lessons, so was there ever a moment in your journey when you doubted yourself? What pulled you through it? How did you overcome that?
I would I would say it was not I doubting myself, but there was a difficult moment in 2012. It was the fourth, I think, program manager in one of the accounts. The teams were very rowdy because they had seen managers come and go, so they were thought, okay, she is also coming. She's going to go away the same way. They were on bordering. Some of them were bordering on the indiscipline side, though there were some very good catalysts also in the team. So I think I was getting a little jarred by people not taking, and it was again an implementation program. So I think what worked for me is I observed, like I said on the previous point, just like countries in any program when you go, you have to first look at the set of programs which you inherit. By the way, when if you're not starting and you are landing midway through the program, which it was, by the way. And
Mhm.
I observed very intently, I like soaked in the information. And what I found was that I needed to give people feedback, but no one was coming for the feedback because everybody was, most of them, like I said, were thinking that probably I'll also be the fourth one going. And I kind of gave them a very honest, transparent communication, clearly stating who was doing well and why. And while not saying who were not doing well, it was very obvious to the rest of the team that they were not up to the mark. So while
Right.
I did not beat on the bush for the people who were not working, once I told them who were my catalyst, the whole team, of course, there was a 2 to 3 days pushback from the people whose name was not on the list. They came and they started saying that why our names are not there. But what it did is, in the long term, Veena, it transformed the team. The catalysts were able to, they were energized, they started running, and they really drove the show to a big extent. But also the
Right.
troublemakers, they changed sides and they came forward, and there was hardly anyone remaining who was not
Right.
contributing. And we were able to, I think, within 3 months, go live on a program which was stalling for, I would say, many months. And within, I would say, 9 months, all the three phases got over and we completed what we wanted to.
Amazing.
But yeah, there were
Yeah.
moments of a lot of trying to push through, and there were a few moments of losing calm, to be very honest. Yeah, in the end, I said everything worked well.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear this. I'm just very happy. I think their leadership style speaks for itself. Right. Like it's just really, like you said, the people first. You know how to handle like the troublemakers and what they need and really understand what they're looking for and be empathetic while pushing them as a mentor. Like, I see your potential. I know you can do this. And that's what kind of shifts that troublemakers into like, oh, like she's motivating me. I see where she's coming from. And then you all have it be like a team, a collective, and it results in success. So it really comes from within, right? You know who you are, you know yourself, you're secure in your leadership, right? So having that conviction is what makes you influence the team, right? So absolutely. This is awesome. And going into mentorship, because I know a lot of people have come to me asking about, hey, can I be a mentor? And they're super interested. So I know I've created something for people, but wanted to hear from your words. So yeah, like what makes someone mentor ready? Like what should emerging leaders do before seeking senior guidance, do you think?
I would say they should be, they should have a certain degree of understanding of who they are,
Okay.
and from that space, look for a mentor. Because as they say, when the student is ready, there is a phrase that the teacher appears. And truly speaking, I have been through many mentors in my journey, and I have realized that match year after year after year is what makes me follow them. That's the first one. And I believe we talked about the second one, which is once you have found a mentor, then you should be ready to unlearn, even if it meant to unlearn and then relearn. But
Mhm.
basically, have faith in the process, because what brought you from here to here will not take you from here to the next step. So you definitely need a mentor, and there
Right.
will be a certain degree of having to let go of who we are to become what we are
Right.
meant to.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. This is what I teach, right? It's the identity piece and what that means. Like you
Yeah.
said, like if you go from like a few years ago, from like same thing, right? In corporate, going from director to VP is one identity, but VP and so forth is a different thing. And you have to adapt and learn, like you said, learn, relearn, shift your mindset, shift your habits and goals, and all of that stuff. Like what do I need to do to become that leader, to lead this, right, to enterprise level? And even like C-suite, even as an entrepreneur like me, we have a similar thing. So you have to keep evolving and growing, and it comes from the identity piece, right? So absolutely. And mentor is, like you said, you have to really know yourself first to be a mentor and to help others. And even if you are a mentee and you're seeking it, what is your next chapter look like, right? To really like get clarity on that as well. Absolutely, I love these things. So going into for a little bit of advice again. So let's see what. So for women in tech aiming for director level and above, I know we had talked about identity piece, but what's the most important skill to develop early? So in addition to really knowing who you are, what else would you say is the most important skill?
I would say you need to be a very sharp communicator. That's one. Number two, know your stakeholders well, because usually when you are thrown into director kind of role, you are surrounded by not only your teams and your customers and their teams, but also your leadership, which sometimes is just not one or two, there are multiple leaderships, right? So,
Hmm.
knowing your stakeholders well to be able to channel your energy well so that you can make your views understood and get the thumbs up, because many times you would, rather than the teams who are sometimes easy to manage, you can come across your leadership who you could have some people with very staunch views, who are not ready to change. And then you want to
Right.
take certain decisions. The first place why you're brought in was, most cases, like I said, Dina, to make a change. But the
Right.
very people around you stop that change. So you have to know how to, through your communication, through persistence, through your tact, uh, find a way without, mostly keeping the bridges intact, as I would say, to navigate and bring that change on. Because ultimately, if you don't, then it's also true that in those levels, it is very easy to just fall back and, go to another step back and go to a lower level. So yeah,
Yeah.
and of course, moving with the current technology with AI and all making such an impact, keeping yourselves fully ready and having that learning mindset. I would say these are three, four things I would say is what will take you there and keep you there.
Exactly. Absolutely. I love how you said like communication because that's where executive presence comes in. It's very different when you're a director, but then you're talking to a C-suite, right? That communication, there's a gap. So learning that and understanding like the stakeholders, how do they talk? Because I know I had a conversation with someone who believed the same thing. Like C-suites, they're a little like more direct and blunt, to the point, concise. So it's very different from what like directors and VPs are used to. And so knowing how to influence them, and that confidence, it really comes from your unique value and what you bring to the table, your lessons. And also another question, I know just a little bit going into the deep aspect of it, but what if someone, for example, woman, right? It's a male dominated industry now. So what if women feel like invisible or they feel overlooked and they're trying to understand like, yes, I do want to influence that, but I have these blocks, right? So can they overcome that if they want to influence the C-suite?
I would say there are some strategies which has worked for me. And I had to also, by the way, unlearn and relearn. One of the ways is having an unpredictable response. You always cannot be a good girl. I was that for a very long time. And then I had to unlearn it because I realized just being a good girl, like I said, what takes you from here to here doesn't take you far. So one
Yeah.
is unpredictable response was one very sharp thing which I learned over the years. Secondly, which I think I have already covered, which is understanding the leadership style of people and then trying to talk to them in their own terms to the best extent possible, because there is no one size shoe fits all. It doesn't work like that. It is very, very, I would say, personalized at the C-suite level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you said, like, you can't always be a good girl. I used to be like that, right? As well, similar thing. And I had to learn how to, like, stand up for myself. So this is another message on how to overcome the being overlooked is going back to the unique value. So it's everything's really starts within, and then understanding who you are and what you stand for, right? So making sure you set boundaries, saying no when you're supposed to. So not being like a
Yes.
people pleaser. Right. And when you want to go into the executive C-suite, you cannot be a people pleaser. You have to be assertive. You have to set boundaries. You have to stand up for your worth. So these are some things that you have to understand and know within yourself, right? To overcome these things, right? It's also like a mindset shift, like you talked about. So those are kind of deeper aspects to it. But thank you so much for sharing that. That's very important for the women out there who are struggling. So for you, your vision, so what's next for you? So any new initiatives or mentorship programs that you're starting?
Yes, I'm looking to definitely in some time, continue to do the coaching within TCS and also in few years look at something of my own. But one thing which I'm really excited about, Veena, is the book I'm writing on project management, and I hope that to publish it within this year, which is
Right.
basically a distill of all my, I would say, last almost 2 decades of being in multiple people leadership roles and what I've learned. pretty much what we have covered in this call. I would try to also make sure it is distilled there, so that the whole idea is to make the leadership role more achievable for women, but at the same time also look at project and program management as a skill which more people are willing to take and not be afraid that it is such a stressful job. So I have tried to make it as my, I would say, prayer and wish to make it more of something which more people can do and be successful project and
Right.
program managers following it.
Right. Awesome. No, super excited for you. Congrats on the book. I'm also an
Thank
author,
you.
so I know how it's like to be, publishing a book. So this is very important because I worked with a lot of program and project managers who believe like you said, it's just all about strategy and the, operational and the tasks, and they're struggling on how to also tie it to the bigger picture and their leadership styles. I think your book would be very inspiring and helpful for a lot of leaders out there in the corporate world, right? So amazing, and
Thank you
congrats
so
to you.
much. Thank you.
Hobby, passion, or creative outlet that keeps you grounded.
Creative outlook, okay. So it's a mix of my spiritual rituals, which I do, which is gratitude journaling and a bit of saging, meditation. And on the energetic side, I love to dance. So if I
Nice.
want to kind of push through an energy, I'm not feeling, I'm experiencing, say, a negative emotion, and I want to move over it. So my first intent would be to either meditate, but sometimes our minds are very powerful, and maybe after a bad day, if my meditation is not working, then I would
Yeah.
probably switch on a good music and just dance and try to shake it off, because you have to go back with fresh energies and new eyes next day.
Exactly. I love how you talked about rejuvenating your energy, right? That's very important, especially women. We're always, and high achieving women, we're always working on the computer, but we need to kind of take a break and slow down and be like, what truly energizes me? Getting back into that femininity, right? What makes it creative? It could be meditation, it could be writing. For me as well, it's also dancing. I love a good music. Just dancing it out is really helpful. So thank you for sharing that for all the women out there. So let me go into your go-to comfort snack during long transformation cycles.
Okay, so this I have been experimenting with a lot of food, especially because I had turned vegan over the years. So in the beginning, it would be a lot of salty food initially, but of late, in the last 7 years, I would say it has been more of fruits, or something like sesame jaggery, kind of a sweet. A sweet, basically, I come from that part of India where we like sweets a lot, both sweets
Right.
and salty. So it would be a combination of something which is not having sugar sweet, but maybe jaggery, or nowadays I experiment with monk fruit a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And then one fun or unexpected fact about you that people would be surprised to learn.
Okay, so I used to do a lot of Zumba. I've not done it recently, but that is one. And the second one is a lot of in Indian festivals, there are a lot of high beat songs. So we have some songs on Lord Ganesha, which they do in
Right.
Ganpati festival, which are very, very, I would say, extremely energetic. So I love to do that, and I have been practicing for many years. That's a secret, and I do intend to perform it at some festival at some time in future. Fingers
Yeah, I
crossed.
hope you do. Yes. I mean, I'm very God driven and fearing. So Ganesha's everything for me. So yeah, I think
Oh,
all of
wow.
those songs are energetic. I'm I'm so glad you shared this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of South Asian women out there also resonate. I'd love for you to perform. I think that'd be great. But I love how you said that you're so focused on your culture. You really embrace it. So absolutely. And then Zumba, like wow. Yeah, I've been kind of following some Zumba videos on YouTube, so I really want to get into it a little bit more. So I hope you do too as well. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's very nice to learn about you. So yeah,
You.
Shashwati, this conversation was such a powerful reminder that transformation isn't just about systems or frameworks, right? It's about people, right, who carry the change forward. So what stayed with me is how you lead from a place of courage, responsibility, and proving that empathy and high performance are not opposites, right? They coexist. right? So for everyone listening, I invite you to reflect on this question. So where in your leadership are you optimizing for outcomes, but overlooking the human cost or opportunity, right? Because real impact isn't just measured in growth metrics or delivery timelines. Yes, that's important, but it's also measured in trust and people looking at the bigger picture, right? You need both for it to be successful. You can't have one or the other. So, and the leaders we help shape along the way. So, Shaswati, thank you so much for your wisdom, integrity, and the way you model leadership. It's truly inspirational. So, I'm proud of what you have created, and that's both bold and deeply human. It's been an honor having you on Voices of Impact, honestly. And to our listeners, the season of Voices of Impact is about rethinking how we lead through complexity, transformation, and growth without losing our center. And for especially females, without losing our feminine leadership, you can have both. And like I said, both can coexist. So if this conversation resonated, feel free to connect with me and Shaswati on LinkedIn and stay tuned for what's coming next, right? So remember that, again, transformation isn't just about changing systems, but it's about who you become while leading them.
Thank you so much, Veena.